The Eagles win by the skin of their teeth in Buffalo. Lot to talk about. This is Smedley on Sports. I am Mitchell Smedley. Welcome back. It's been a bit of a minute. Holidays are over. Everything's calming down. Hopefully you had a tremendous Christmas and New Year's coming up as I record this. Tomorrow night is New Year's Eve, so 2026. Hopefully we'll see another Super Bowl in the new year for the Philadelphia Eagles, who sit now on a 3-game win streak. And let me tell you something, I couldn't care less about the 3 wins, and I'll tell you why. Because there are still major problems with this football team as we are on the precipice of January playoff football. So much to get into, so thank you for joining me to talk about it. 13-12 in Buffalo, and the elephant in the room is the Eagles did not complete a pass in the second half of the game. Jalen Hurts looked awful. 1 touchdown in the first half. I'm supposed to believe that half of the game was amazing. It really wasn't. Jalen led the Eagles offense to 1 score, which was on a short field after a defensive turnover. The Eagles offense has serious problems as we head on into January. And it's an offense that really, I struggle to walk into January with any sort of confidence that Jalen can play well enough to win playoff games. Multiple in a row, which is what you need to do. The Eagles are going to need to win 4 games in a row in January and February to be Super Bowl champions. And in a league where quarterbacks so often decide playoff games, I'm not sure. We have such a great defense here, and defense wins championships. Eagles rode their defense to a title last year. I understand that, but you saw that Hurts was able to still play competent to above average football at times last postseason. It wasn't great. It wasn't the best quarterback play I've ever seen. It definitely had its flaws. But in the snow, still put up points against the Rams. A lot of that was on the back of Saquon, who's not running as well this year. A lot of that was on the ground as well in the Washington game. 7 of the 8 touchdowns came on the ground, and the one that didn't was also a short field. And the Super Bowl, I've gone through this enough times. He made some good throws. He really didn't have to do too much. The game was over by halftime. Can Jalen Hurts put a team on his back in a playoff game and win? I feel like we are yet to see it. I can run through every game. Obviously, 2021 and 2023, team wasn't as good. They were first-round exit to Tampa Bay both years. Jalen did not play well, obviously. 2022, Eagles had the first-round bye. Then they got the Giants. Game was over by halftime. And then the NFC Championship game, that game looked a little messy early on, but then the 49ers didn't have a quarterback. Eagles cruised to the victory. And probably what people argue is his best game in the playoffs so far is that first Chiefs Super Bowl that the Eagles lost. He had the big fumble, totally altered the game, brought them back in the fourth quarter, put up 35 points. It was a decent game as well, so whatever. I just haven't seen Jalen really put a team on his back, be the reason that they win a playoff game. I feel like the better Jalen plays in the playoffs, the more that you seem to see them lose. Well, I shouldn't say that. Maybe that's unfair because it was the one game in the Super Bowl. He played fine last year. They kept winning. I don't think he played particularly well in the Green Bay game. The Rams game had issues. Like I said, a lot of the offense there was Saquon-based, and then we can keep going down the line there. But let's talk about this year. I took a couple weeks, holidays and a bunch of other stuff coming up, so didn't get to talk about the Raiders and Washington game. To a lot of folks, probably looked like I was ditching after Jalen Hurts put up some stats, but I'll address it here. I don't care about a single thing in those 2 games. The Washington game, the Raiders game, completely inferior opponents. If you lost, it would have been a meltdown. Would have been an absolute atrocity. So they managed to not lose, which is great. 31-0 against the Raiders. That game was never close. Eagles controlled a ton of the time of possession there. And I don't think Jalen had to play in the fourth quarter. So Washington, little closer for a lot longer. Jalen had a terrible first half, which people don't talk about. Terrible first half. There were some moments from the Washington game where I said, wow, that was a good throw, especially thinking of the Goddard throw in the end zone for that touchdown where Jalen maneuvered the pocket and threw an absolute dime in the end zone on third and goal from about, I think, the 16 or so. So that was a great throw. So we see a flash or two against these inferior opponents. But then when you play a good defense, when you play a good team in Buffalo, absolutely terrible. And everyone's going to say, well, Josh Allen sucked too. And that's true. That is absolutely true that the Eagles only put up 13, but the Bills only put up 12. So the Eagles do get the win. Josh Allen had a wide open receiver on that 2-point conversion. The Eagles should have lost this game at several different points. If Jalen Carter doesn't block the extra point, they don't have to go for 2 on that next drive to try and win. They can win it with an extra point. And the defense, I'm not going to get on them for the last 5 minutes because they held the Bills' offense to 0 points for 55 minutes. Defense had another extraordinary showing. That game should not have been close. It was 13-0 at half. You go out, you add 1 or 2 touchdowns. Oh my gosh, if they had 2 touchdowns. Game's not even a conversation. Eagles would have won comfortably. But they didn't. And the Eagles are incapable of scoring consistently. It's because they don't have a good scheme. That's true. Kevin Patullo has not been good. It's continued to show these last 3 weeks. But also because the guy running the offense on the field is not talented, cannot throw accurately, cannot buy time, cannot get rid of it quickly when he needs to, cannot read coverage, can't do any of these things that are necessary in the playoffs. So I can come on here and I can break down every single piece of Jalen Hurts' film and every throw he's made. I've done it ad nauseum. I don't want to be a one-trick pony. What I want to talk about more so today is coaching and the organization that not the organization, but the direction the Eagles are going in here this final week against the Commanders at home. Because I have a laundry list of gripes with Nick Sirianni. Number one, I just talked about how fluky that win in Buffalo is and how I don't care that it's a 3-game win streak. And Nick Sirianni seems to think that they are just on a rampage, demolishing great team after great team, because he's going down the tunnel acting a fool after the Buffalo game. Acting like people, saying something like people, oh, nobody's talking now. I'm still talking. You're an idiot, dude. You're an idiot. Consistently acting like this after mediocre wins is stupid. It's just dumb. It makes you look like a loser, and it makes this team look soft and ridiculous. He did the same thing after the Browns win last year. A team you should have run out of the stadium. You beat by 4. And he goes screaming at fans. And you beat Buffalo by 1 when you should have lost for a few different reasons. It was the flukiest win. And he's over there screaming at people. Your quarterback, your offense, has 2 games this year where they don't complete a pass in the second half. And by some miracle, because you have such a great defense, they've won both of those games. That does not give you the right to go around talking trash and acting a fool. It does not. So Nick Sirianni hasn't changed. He's the problem. He is the source of all the culture issues in this locker room. He's not a leader, at least not a good leader. He doesn't know how to read a room. He doesn't know how to correct mistakes. I keep hearing him go on radio and press conferences everywhere and talk about how we need to clean up the fundamentals. We need to do this. We need to focus on this. I need to do a better job at this and getting the play calls in on time and adjusting during the game and talking to Kevin Patullo. It's week 18 now. The time for this is September. The time to iron out these minor details is September. Your team, if you want to make a deep run in January, should be a well-oiled machine months ago. They're still figuring out things that should have been ironed out in training camp. This is ridiculous. This is not professional. It is not professional. So he can keep opening his mouth. But just know that if this goes the way that I think it's going to go, when a team is not led by a good coach, and when a team is not led by a good quarterback, in January, I'm going to talk too, Nick. And all of us that see this and share the opinion I have, we're going to be talking too. And eventually, if this keeps up and you don't continue winning Super Bowls, and things regress to the mean, maybe you don't have the best defense in the league one year, and it falls on you to put together an offense and a scheme and a coaching staff that can actually put up points in the National Football League, that starts to become a problem. Howie Roseman's going to talk as well. He doesn't wait around. Exhibit A, Doug Peterson. So, Nick Sirianni can enjoy his 1-point win in Buffalo. I didn't particularly enjoy it. Of course I love winning, and I'm glad that they won. And I'm glad that they still have a shot at the 2 seed. But I didn't feel warm and cuddly after that game. But that's another point. The 2 seed is still available, and it's actually very much within the grasp. If the Eagles win on Sunday and the Lions beat the Bears, the Eagles will be the 2 seed. They will host Green Bay just like last year. Now, the alternative is to be the 3 seed and host either the Rams or the Niners. Both of which I think, and it's the opinion of just about everyone I've talked to, the Rams and Niners are both miles better than the Packers and would be a severely tougher challenge in the first round. All that to be said, Nick Sirianni has hinted that the Eagles might not start their starters on Sunday. Prioritize health and get rest, and we love having that bye week. What are we talking about? You still have something to play for, and it's a big difference. You can't take any team for granted, and I'm not saying the Packers are an automatic win, but they're a team that you completely stifled this season, whereas the Rams had a half where they totally dominated you. You won the game against the Rams completely flukily. 2 blocked field goals it took. The Rams were the team that almost knocked you out last year, by the way. There are a lot of reasons I would like to have the Packers rather than the Rams come to Philly. They're more injured. Their quarterback's not as good. Quarterback play matters in the postseason. So if it were me, I would be starting the starters on Sunday. I cannot fathom why you would not. And look, I don't think this is going to happen, but if Chicago's blowing out Detroit at halftime, they're going to win that game, pull your starters. Preserve their health. That's fine. But going into the game, I'm playing the starters. Now, I think Detroit's going to win the game. I think Detroit has a ton of talent, obviously. The Bears have no defense. Detroit has a ton of offensive pieces. I think Detroit has the better quarterback. Detroit has not had the better season, but you look at the amount of close one-score wins the Bears have. They're not a dominant, roll-you-over type of team, even though they did dominate the Eagles. So I think Detroit has a really good shot to win that game. And if Nick Sirianni doesn't play the starters, it would be an atrocity. Now, the Eagles could still win the game with their backups. I mean, Washington is just a terrible football team. And they're on their 3rd-string quarterback. So, you'll still have a shot in that game. Tanner McKee would still be the best quarterback in that game. But why leave it up to that? Control what you can control. Nick Sirianni says it all the time. I would control what we can control here. That's just my thinking. And there's a couple different ways you can take it, but I think it's clear. You play the starters. You scoreboard watch in the NFC North and see what happens there. Bottom line is the Eagles should not struggle with Washington. You should win this game, assuming your starters play. But I wanted to look ahead past Washington, and a lot to be sorted out. The Eagles, either the 2 or 3. You pretty much have your field set except for the NFC South team. It's either going to be the Panthers or the Bucks. But I wanted to do an exercise and just look around here. Let's say the Eagles are the 2. I think the Eagles beat the Packers, even as currently constructed. We saw it this year. We saw it in the playoffs last year. I feel like every time we play the Packers, we beat them. Beat them in the first week of last year. Beat them in 2022. Consistently beat the Packers. I think they're just not as talented. I don't particularly like Jordan Love. They have some other crucial injuries. The Micah Parsons injury leading the way there. Tucker Kraft been injured all year. The list goes on. Our DBs are better than their receivers, clearly. I can go up and down that list. And if that's the matchup, I will go up and down that list and match them up and talk about it ad nauseum next week. But I think the Eagles would win that. That would move them to the divisional round. And then, you have to sort out what else happens. I think the Niners are going to, if they're the 5 seed, I think the Niners will roll whichever NFC South team gets in as the 4. I'm also assuming Seattle locks up the 1 seed. Could be a big assumption. I don't know. Just for a thought experiment, say the Niners win that 4-5 matchup, and I think the Rams, as the 6, would beat the 3 seed Bears. I think the Rams are probably the best team in the NFC in the Eagles' way. So that means the Rams are going to go to Seattle, and the Niners would come to Philly. I think both of those would be incredible games, very close. Niners have no defense. They have a ton of offense. Eagles have a ton of defense. They have no offense. It's an interesting game. I think they win it. I don't know. I think there's a real shot the Eagles are in the NFC Championship game. With all of my complaints about Nick Sirianni and about Jalen Hurts and about Kevin Patullo and about Adoree Jackson, whoever else you want to add to the list that I complain about on a regular basis. I'm still optimistic about this. This is not some doom and gloom. Oh, they've won 3 games, but they're still going to be a first-round exit guaranteed. No, I'm not saying that. I think the Eagles, depending on the matchups, and just depending on a lot of things, by the way, could beat anyone in this field. Who watched the Rams on Monday Night Football and thought, oh my gosh, what a buzzsaw. They've lost 3 of their last 5. They lost to the Panthers. They gave up a lead to the Seahawks. Right? They are not fundamentally sound right now. They're going to get healthier. Getting Devontae Adams back will help. Tyler Higbee's going to help. They're going to get healthier. We'll see. There's a lot of moving parts with the Rams. I think generally they're a very talented football team. So the Eagles, they could beat the Rams, depending on matchups, depending on timing, depending on health, depending on all these different things. Where the game's played, weather. But also, I think the Eagles could lose to any of these teams, and we would not be shocked. The one exception might be the Panthers and Bucks, whoever wins the South. But honestly, both of those teams have played well against good teams this year at times. Eagles beat the Bucks. Got very close. Eagles dominated them for a while. Got very close. So my point is, I am still optimistic. But the Eagles could lose to any of these teams. They could lose to the Packers. It was a 3-point game the first time they played. There was a tying field goal attempt. They could lose to the Seahawks. They could lose to the Rams. They could lose to the Niners. They have lost to the Bears, convincingly. And we'll see what happens. Theoretically, they could lose to the NFC South team. I think that's your best shot. I'd love to play them in the second round. What would a situation have to arise? Eagles would have to win. The NFC South team would obviously have to win. So if the Eagles are the 2, you have 1, 2, and 4 advancing, which means the 6 would have to advance. So Rams beat the Bears in that scenario. Or if the Eagles are the 3 seed, they would have to beat, say, the Rams. The Packers would have to beat the Bears. That's possible. Divisional game. And the Panthers or whoever would have to beat the Niners again. So the game would be in Philly. I think we'd have a very, very favorable shot to win that game. But it wouldn't come as a total shock. The Eagles have lost to worse this year. They've lost to the Giants. They barely beat the Lions, who aren't a playoff team. They lost to the Chargers, who are a playoff team. And, I just don't think the Chargers are an incredible team. Another mid-team. There's some mid-teams in the NFL this year that are making the playoffs. Chargers, possibly the Steelers, possibly the Panthers, possibly the Bucks, Eagles don't dominate anyone. No matter who they're playing, that team's probably going to be in the game with a shot to win it in the fourth quarter. You're going to be on the edge of your seat, in all likelihood, this entire month, hopefully more, of playoff football. So it makes it fun, though. If you win. Personally, I still think it's fun to roll teams. 55-23 was awesome in the NFC Championship game. But we all look back on that Rams game and go, wow, what a game. Jalen Carter making his presence felt. What a game. And I think if the Eagles get to the Super Bowl, you're going to have a hell of a lot more of those wow, what a games this year. Don't have a ton of them in recent memory. All three NFC Championship games we've been in the last 10 years, we've just dominated, just rolled everybody. You know, after that opening touchdown, we rolled the Vikings. Destroyed the 49ers. They didn't have a quarterback. Destroyed the Commanders after the first half. But, you know, there's just not that many close games. Two close, very close Super Bowls. Very close. What crazy games. And one blowout. And then you have the Rams game, and you could even throw the Falcons game in 2017 in there. But, you know, Packers game never felt that close. Giants game in 22 never felt close. So Eagles have lucked out and had a ton of blowouts to their credit in these three playoff runs. 2018, two close games, two weird games. And unfortunately, that Saints game, that could be a precursor. Eagles went up 14-0 and then just couldn't move the ball. And the Saints, you know, death by 1,000 cuts, wound up winning. Ball goes through Alshon Jeffrey's hands, intercepted, we all know. That one hurt, by the way. People don't talk about that game enough. But point being, all of this to say, number one, get ready. Because January is now here. Playoff football is right around the corner. And the Eagles need to take advantage of every little edge they can get. And one big one that's sitting there as a possibility is getting the 2 seed. Only having one team you would have to travel to, being Seattle. And I think Seattle can lose. I think Seattle is so fraudulent. Sam Darnold is going to go on a deep playoff run? No. Who might Seattle face in the second round? It could be the Packers if they beat the 2 seed. I think that's a close game. I gotta get there to see who I'm picking in that. The Rams. Oh, the Rams would walk in there so pissed off after their last game. I think the Rams would win that game. I think the Niners would have a real good shot to win that game. Probably be favored, in my opinion. Eagles wouldn't have to play them till the NFC Championship game. That's awesome. No matter what, whether they're the 2 or the 3. It'd be a crazy game, I think. 2 defensive focused teams. 2 underwhelming quarterbacks, in my opinion. Some good receiver play on both sides. Be an interesting game. So, the main takeaways from this last 3 games, this winning streak the Eagles are on, is there really is no takeaway. They beat 2 terrible teams, struggled in the first half against Washington mightily, terrible, and then continued to look awful against the Bills on offense. Defense, I love them. And I hope we can ride this defense to a championship. So, I'm trying to be a little more positive. Not going to get on here and rant and rave. I've done the song and dance already. We're at the point where all season long, I wanted them to change this or that, and I wanted Jalen to figure it out. And I tried to convince fans that they're being fooled, that all the winning is just hiding the fact that they don't have a good quarterback that's going to be good for them in the long term. Same with the coach. And whatever. The season is over, and either you've been convinced, you've been awoken, or you haven't. I can't change that now. All I can do is walk into another playoff run, ready to go, ready to rock and roll, be the loudest fan, the biggest fan I can be, and hopefully enjoy the ride. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. We'll talk about it, all the things that went wrong, and I'll put forth solutions for the offseason. But it ain't the offseason yet. We're just getting started, hopefully. So that's the takeaway. I'm getting excited. I'm still pissed off at the team. But it's time where we're going to see if this strategy works. If this whole just play defense and don't turn it over and score once a game. We'll see if it works. Look, they've won games 16-9, 10-7, and 13-12. All right. Let's see it. Let's see it in the playoffs when everything matters more. When you're playing against great quarterbacks each week. Except for Sam Darnold and Jordan Love. Maybe Bryce Young. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in the NFC. It's a wide open year. Who's going to go to the Super Bowl? I have no idea. I hope it's the Eagles. But I think they have a hell of a bigger shot to do it if they play their starters this week, if they get the 2 seed, and then let's put it together. And then let's start having Jalen run. Let's have Jalen just suddenly be more accurate. Let's put up some points. It's a crazy thought. But a lot more to come. This is just a preliminary. I'm at that point where, all right, it's over. The meat of the season is over. Jalen hasn't changed. He didn't take a step forward. He is who he is. Same with Nick. Nick's a bum. Doing his whole song and dance, whatever. Let's just go win now. Let's just go keep winning in the playoffs. Did it last year. Didn't do it the year before. Did it the year before that. Didn't do it the year before that. We're on this seesaw. What is this regime? I think this year tells us a hell of a lot. Are they winners or not? We're going to find out. I'm excited to find out. I'm scared to find out. All the playoff emotions are heating up. That's what makes it so great. So, I'm Mitchell Smedley. This has been Smedley on Sports. Let me know. Are you more nervous going into the playoffs or are you more excited? Nervous or excited? Which is it? I got a healthy dose of both. I'm more so excited. I am nervous, obviously, that I'm right and that Jalen can't do it. Because the supporting cast isn't helping him out as much this year. But we got the great defense. Let's hope this offensive line starts gelling. Lane Johnson comes back. Let's go, man. There is a pathway here for the Eagles to be very successful. But the way they've been doing it hasn't been it. You got to have a quarterback that's accurate. You can't go a whole half not completing a pass. You can't rely on flukes. Of course, you want those lucky breaks when you can get them, but you got to be able to put teams away. So, let's beat Washington. Let's go Lions. Let's get the 2 seed, and let's start rolling. Link's going to be loud very, very soon. It's always loud. It's going to be louder very, very soon. Very excited. I'll talk to you soon. More upcoming playoff thoughts. More thoughts on quarterback. More thoughts on the injury situations going on. And obviously we'll talk more about this Washington game as it gets closer. Thanks for hanging out with me. This is Smedley on Sports. Talk to you soon.